Hi, everybody. I'm John Bell, and this is the Harbinger Report. Well, we got some high craziness going on in our world today, as I'm sure all of you are paying attention to or aware of. And I did have a guest lined up for this evening, but something happened to them, and I haven't been able to get a hold of them for a few hours. So I hope and pray that they are doing okay and nothing happened to them. I'm sure I'll hear about it later, but I hope it's not anything too bad. Uh, I hope it's just I missed or misplaced or forgot kind of thing, and not I had to go to a hospital kind of thing for me or a family member. Craziness. But I haven't heard anything, so I'm not exactly sure what's going on. But anyway, that's sometimes how the cookie crumbles and the balls roll downhill. So that said, I'm just gonna wing the show myself, and tonight we're doing the episode on episode 15 is going to be on the upcoming solar eclipse, which everybody and their grandmother is rising from the grave to talk about. Apparently, I cannot explain to you how many people have brought this up to me, and many have asked me to address it. And Buddy called this morning asking about it as well. I was planning to do something else for tonight, but I decided, with with everything going on and so many people asking, that I'll shift gears and go ahead and cover this issue because there is some very interesting things that fall into the Harbinger report category that we can discuss. So I just got back from a long trip up north, and I hope some of my friends up there are watching tonight. And thank you very much for all your help. You know who you are, if so. But in that case, let's move on with tonight's topic, shall we? Oops. Okay. My thing did not come up, but that's all right. We'll go to another. Okay, so the subject is um, the 2024 solar eclipse. So everybody knows about it. Everybody's heard about it. It's coming up. But one interesting fact about it is officials across the U.S. are using emergency warnings and mass about the eclipse, and that is very strange and crazy and should raise red flags. So Canada, near Niagara, they have already declared emergency warnings for the coming eclipse. And here you can screenshot this. I can't read it because it's too small. Um, Here's they're just explaining the distance of the eclipse, how wide it's going, just basic information. Here's a picture of the same thing. So this gives you an idea where it's going to cross the country. Here's another one. Here's another one where it's crossing the country. Now, one thing that's very interesting about this is the location in which it's crossing. All right. And there's a lot of people, especially a lot of people online, that are talking about having weird and strange dreams or messages from God or prophecies about this event. And if you do study biblical history, God does use such signs and warnings, and we will briefly cover into some of that. Here's a woman on TikTok who's talking about how she believes God gave her a message. She's got a video on there. If you want to screenshot the title. I couldn't find the video by her name. I tried to upload it here, it wouldn't let me. Here's just another picture of kind of the area, the path, the trajectory it's going to be on. Now, here's something that's crazy, and we'll be covering more of this in a little film I'm going to add. But look at this. They're calling it the eight Ninevehs because they're saying it's going to cross towns that are Nineveh this, Nineveh that, Nineveh, Ohio, Nineveh, Indiana, Nineveh, Texas, Nineveh, PA. And it ends up in, it goes through Nineveh, New York, and winds up in Nineveh, Canada, somewhere. And that's just on the level of insanity. Because again, that ties it back to biblical prophecy. You know what I'm saying? So um those are the kind of things that we pay attention to because that's why we have a state of emergency. And that's why a lot of people are, you know, um, saying that they're really scared about what's going on. Now, me personally, I don't think anything major is going to happen on that day. Okay. But I do think it's kind of an omen for things to come, if you will. And here's one of the crazier things about this. If you look at this image, in August 21 of 2017, we know that we had a solar eclipse that crossed the US, okay, from the West Coast to the Southeast. And now we're having one from on April 8th, 2024. It's going to be a total eclipse that's going to cross from Texas all the way through the northeastern part of the US into through Maine and Canada, okay? Now, that's absolutely kind of crazy and insane, and people are taking notice that, hey, look, this kind of area near Kentucky, Tennessee is where the cross meets, where the target meets the X, so to speak. And I think that that's pretty significant. I have my own personal theory on that, and I'm going to interject that now. And that is this. Boom. There happens to be a spot right here called the New Madrid fault line. And for those who do not understand, the New Madrid fault line is actually the largest faults or most active or where their biggest earthquakes in U.S. history have actually taken place. Now, it hasn't happened since, olden times. So that might be a reason why in modern times we forget about it, but there's a major fault. So I believe it's kind of crazy. I believe in conspiracy because that is the nature and how evil operates. To say there's no such thing as conspiracy is to say that there's no such thing as evil, or to say there's no such thing as the devil, that whole thing. The devil wants you to believe he doesn't exist, right? I want you to believe that evil doesn't exist. I want you to believe that there are not people behind closed doors that are making plans to destroy the rest of us, because that's how evil works in secret societies, secret oaths, things like that. Never trust the secret societies. Okay. Now, so how coincidental, and I do believe in conspiracy. I do not believe in coincidence that X falls right on the New Madrid fault line. All right. Here's another picture of the New Madrid fault line and how it connects in that exact area. Another picture of the New Madrid fault line and how it connects in that X, which to me is scary as all hell. Here's a different picture. See, the New Madrid fault line pretty much starts underneath Michigan and it makes a curved line, but almost straight down to my home state of Louisiana. All right. So that's bad. That's real bad. Okay. Here's another picture where you see it going from the Great Lakes all the way down to Louisiana. Okay. Now we're back to Danger Will Robinson. Again, remember the X crossing, right? And we got this New Madrid. Here's what's crazy about this. I'll tell you. Um, Back when I was in a religious order years ago, uh, I've had a lot of dreams and prophecies. That's my thing. That's my shtick. And I was in this religious community, and I was leaving to go home to make a home visit to visit my parents in Louisiana. And I was in Upper Michigan at the time, um, where my community was, and it was a great community. A lot of stuff I loved about it and loved about being there. We lived kind of off grid at a retreat facility where people could come and make retreats. and you sit in a log cabin with nothing but like a Bible and a wood stove. No electricity, no running water. I was as comfortable and happy as could be, and I miss it. I hate being here in Louisiana where it's 100 degrees in the summertime with 100% humidity. But getting back to the story, the night before I was coming home to make a home visit, and I was all excited about it. God showed me this vision, and I was driving home, and all of a sudden in front of me, I see this. Notice the size of the cars in this. I was on the road, and the ground split in front of me, just like you see in this image, and just like the size of that car. I was in the roadway when this happened in front of me. All right. And it split wide. I mean, it started off like this, but it became as wide as like the Grand Canyon. In fact, many cars and homes I saw fell inside this gap. And it was about it started off like this image and it quickly grew to this image. All right. There wasn't water in it at the time, but I saw cars and houses, all like hundreds of them lined up. And I was standing there with other people that were standing kind of at the edge. We were like on the edge line of this, just the way it took place. And we were out of our cars. It stopped right before our the road ended right in front of us when this happened. And I'm kind of looking this way. I'm looking the long way from my view, and me and other people are standing around, and we're just in shocks that, like, the magnitude of what just took place in front of us. And I saw literally hundreds and hundreds of cars that were on the road that fell into this thing. Were all on the bottom, and we were standing there, and it was kind of getting dark, and we stayed there until the evening. And in the evening, all you saw was headlights from every direction, pointing different ways from the hundreds, if not thousands, of cars that were at the bottom of this thing. And I woke up from that dream or vision, dream, whatever you want to call it. I think it was a prophetical uh, dream, and because I get things like that a lot. I woke up from that and I was just shook to my core, and I was like, "What the hell is that?" And the funny thing is, like, it stayed with me. Like, there's something that's gonna happen uh, to Louisiana specifically, but something on the fault line right there. And I had never heard of the New Madrid fault line. So I went back and started to research when I got home and look for stuff. And sure enough, I found that there was this massive fault line called the New Madrid fault line that went from the bottom of Michigan all the way down to Louisiana. All right. And the core and heart of it is right here where that X crosses the spot in our country. All right. As if that's not, crazy, insane enough. Not only that, though, what was interesting about this is I found other people online that said that they were getting prophetic dreams and prophecies about the same event taking place. Now, this was years ago. This was years ago. This is like almost 10 years ago when this happened to me, and give or take. And and I remember these other people. In fact, I found all these people online that said that they were having these strange dreams and prophecies about this event. And basically what many were saying was that when the ground here, when you had the attack here, or quake, with a super magnitude quake, and basically it caused this split in the crust, all right, that became very wide. And what happened is it went, like I said, from Michigan to Louisiana. So what happened is the Great Lakes, if you see on this map, the Great Lakes then filtered in this new, just almost instantly made Grand Canyon that you see here in the center, and it took over the Mississippi River, created a new kind of river, and the entire state of Louisiana, I saw, went into the ground like the Grand Canyon. Like, Louisiana became this, the whole state became that. All right. And then you see this map here where the Great Lakes feed into it, and it becomes the new Mississippi, splitting the US pretty much almost in half, dividing the US through states separating. And then even Louisiana itself became the new delta, meaning it was underwater, feeding, the base feeding the into the Gulf of Mexico. Okay. Now, one thing that's crazy about this, so like I said, I heard several people that had stories, house moms, things like that, that talked about this. The same time I had this prophetic uh, dream or vision. Okay, and remember, the Bible says the end times, your young people will see visions, your old people will dream dreams. And I get both all the time. I get more visions and prophecies than I do dreams, but I've had both, and I think it's a necessary time. Why is it necessary that in the end times God says He's going to pour out His Spirit in a special way upon His people, and that the young people will see visions, that old people will dream dreams? I would say that one reason of that is because our priests and our clergy, our pastors, our churches are letting us down. They're becoming more and more secularized and more away from God many times. And you're not going to hear them talking about the big issues or the most important things that are going on in our world today, like depopulation, like uh, like war. I mean, there's no better way to depopulate than war. And look what's going on right now. I mean, when Tucker Carlson said he was going to meet Putin, man, the government came hard on him, even threatened to charge him with treason and as a spy for being a journalist to do what journalists do. How does that make any sense, right? Well, I think here's the reason why. It's something I already knew because I track and follow these stories and what Putin says and have done that for years. I do not listen to Fox. I do not listen to CNN. I do not listen to mainstream media. What I do is go and listen directly to what Putin says or his generals say. That's what I do, because you never want to hear one side of news, even if it's your own. You don't want to hear one side. You want to hear all the viewpoints, even from your enemy side or other camp side or other country side. That's called intelligence. One sided intelligence is called propaganda, you know? So to get real intelligence, you've got to break through propaganda. And if you are watching mainstream media, you know nothing but propaganda and you are brainwashed. And that's how it works. That's how it works. There's no such thing as journalism anymore. There really is not. There's not. You have a bunch of paid actors reading from an editor's script, and that's how it's done. It's not journalism. And people who try to do real independent journalism, 9 times out of 10 get shut down or attacked more and more. That's how it works. But I would highly suggest to everyone listening, do not listen to mainstream media. It is all government controlled, state run. I know this for a fact firsthand. Um, and if you want real news, you have to go to independent media. You have to go to independent journalists where you will actually find real journalists, unless they're bought off. And today, many are. So you got to be real careful of that. All right. But anyway, getting back to this, one story that struck out to me that really made an impact on me was one person said that they had a dream, and in this dream he said he saw people in like white lab coats in like a lab setting, and he said that they were saying to each other that if they want to happen, what their goal was to take place, that they were going to have to cause a major earthquake on the new Madrid fault line. Now, with projects like Sarin, I mean that's Sarin. Well, Sarin, yeah, but also thinking of HARP, right? The HARP project. We know that our government has technology today. This is unrefutable, that they can manipulate and change weather. They can create hurricanes. They can also steer hurricanes away. So uh, if a hurricane ever hits our coast again, our government allowed it to take place, and that's a fact. They can also create them. They can also stare them. They can also make them stay in one place and just destroy the heck out of it. Like maybe Katrina. The storm just sat perfectly still over the city, which was very odd and strange. So it didn't just dissipate like it should have, or should have gone on lands further. But anyway, we do have weather altering technology, and we have the technology to be able to cause earthquakes and to cause massive earthquakes. We have that technology. If you're not aware of that, the technology is real and it exists. So it really freaked me out when I heard about this guy with this dream that said he saw these guys in a lab saying that to accomplish their agenda, they had to artificially create a massive earthquake in the New Madrid fault line. All right. Now, one thing that's really crazy about that is this. This is a U.S. Navy maps of future America. You see all these areas in gray? Those are areas where our own Corps of Engineers, all right, our own military engineers have stated this is a future map of the United States. So, some way, somehow, they know the West Coast is going to be destroyed. The East Coast is going to be destroyed. The southern coast of the Gulf of Mexico is going to be destroyed. They know there's going to be a cataclysmic event that separates the United States from the East Coast to the central part of the country. And what do they show right here? They show a new, I don't know what you would call it, river water divide stateswide from Michigan all the way down to Louisiana. Louisiana gone, not existing on a map at all in the future. And on the West Coast, water coming in all the way up to pretty much the Rockies, where it stops. So the Rocky Mountains become beachfront property. So buy it up while you can. Anyway, so how crazy is this? This is very, very scary crazy if you put these little pieces of the puzzle together. Okay. So again, just to recap, everybody knows we've got the solar eclipse. People are freaking out because they're saying that, they're feeling high strangeness over this. Another thing that's very weird is many states have declared a state of emergency over this event. And as we also pointed out, the course of this happens to be going through Jonah, Texas, Nineveh, Texas, Rapture, Indiana, Nineveh, Indiana, Nineveh, Ohio, Nineveh, Pennsylvania, Nineveh, New York, and stops in Nineveh, Canada, somewhere in Canada. All right. Dude, that is not a coincidence. That is crazy scary and brings us to the state of emergency. Then we talk about how if you take the 2017 eclipse and its path, and then the 2024 eclipse and its path, and it shows you where the X marks the spot, right? And that X marks the spot happens to be right on top of the New Madrid fault line, which is high crazy. And then I explained too about visions and prophecies I've had of the earth splitting right there and creating a Grand Canyon that would separate the country. And then other people saying that they're seeing the same thing leading to this event right here. And it's not scary enough that all that's going on and taking place, that our own government knows about it. This is proof positive our own government knows about this. Or do they use advanced technology to actually even create it? There's the big question. Now, let's take in some other accounts of this. There's something else I want to point out from this, from a kind of a cultish standpoint. Okay, what do we have an image of right here? And this is the image I used for the thumbnail of the show. All right, look at this image. What do you see? It's almost like a circle in the sky with kind of a ball, oval ball at the end of it, at the tip. All right. And it eerily reminds me of something that God once told me. Okay. And that's this. God told me for years, I kept hearing this voice in my head in prayer where the Lord said this: when the snake eats its tail, the gates of hell shall open. When the snake eats its tail, the gates of hell shall open. When the snake eats its tail, the gates of hell shall open. Now, this looks eerily like almost like creating a portal, does it not? And believe it or not, there are vortexes and portals in our world that are naturally occurring. And I would say this to some degree is possibly could be one of them, right? But we also have technology just to create our own out of nothing. And I'm coming to that very shortly. Here's another image, somewhat similar. And again, it just strikes me as this or this, another representation of the same thing. And that is this: the Ouroboros. I hope I'm not butchering that. Uh, the Ouroboros. And let me see if I can pull that up in my phone real quick so I can actually read it. Okay, so the Ouroboros is an ancient symbol depicting a serpent or dragon eating its own tail. Uh, Entered Western traditional via ancient Egyptian iconography and Greek magical tradition. Well, that's crazy because when we talk about secret societies and the occult, it always goes back to Babylonian occult mystery schools, which all incorporated Egyptian black magic and even Greek mysticism. Okay, so that's perfectly connected. It was adopted as a symbol of Geonosis in Hermeticism, and most notable in alchemy. Alchemy is like sorcery, right? Um, some snakes, such as a rat snake, have been known to consume themselves. All right, yeah, it's kind of like what our society's doing right now. Okay, moving on. Okay, so just keeping that in mind. So you could say it's making a little leap from that to this, but man, I tell you, it's sticking in the top of my head to the explanation of this. Now, here's another thing too. I didn't think to add this, but I should have. Gordy Rose, the CEO of D Wave, they make the AI, artificial intelligence, quantum computer systems, and they're like the leading company in the world for that. They're the ones they sell their stuff to intelligence agencies like Facebook, Google, all that kind of stuff. All right. I don't know. Amazon might have one, but it's like the leading quantum mechanics systems. And if you watch Gordy Rose giving a presentation, he on one of his the presentations, he has this image on his T-shirt. He has that on the middle center of his T-shirt as he's giving a talk. All right. Then in another interview he did, he has a red circle, just a red circle, almost depicting the exact same thing, just without the snake head on it, right? And I think it represents the same exact thing. But he actually wore a T-shirt almost perfect to this design. It had some sharp kind of raged areas along the ridge line of the back. But other than that, it was, and I have the exact picture somewhere. I just didn't think to put it up. But it was very similar to this image. Now, also, there was a Super Bowl commercial one year, and it was a guy entering a bar, and it was a blacked out bar. Like the walls are black, the floors are black, the counters are black, everything. The guy's wearing a suit, and when he walks up to the bar and he sticks his hand on the bar, his suit jacket pulls back, and what do you see on his wrist? You see a tattoo of you see a tattoo of this on his wrist. All right, and we all know how they use these crazy symbols especially in like Super Bowl commercials and stuff like that, or their presentations where they've got these people doing all these like satanic looking rituals and these things a lot of times. That's just crazy. Okay, now keeping these things in mind, all right? So keeping the fact that we got the solar eclipse coming, okay? Keeping in mind that keeping in mind that it's going to be making a cross on the U.S. at this spot. And that spot, again, happens to be the New Madrid fault line. All right. And I've talked about the New Madrid fault line and what a danger it is, and how coincidental that the actual spot, the heart of that, is almost exactly where that line is crossing in our country. And we also spoke about how it's crossing all these places of Nineveh. See, Nineveh is super important because what happened in Nineveh? Well, that brings you to Jonah and the whale. And what happened to Jonah and the whale? All right. God told Jonah to go and preach the destruction of the country of Nineveh. That God was going to destroy it because of their sins. Kind of like Sodom and Gomorrah, right? So Jonah didn't want to follow God's rule in this. He tried to run away. And that's when he tried to hide on a ship. The storms came, everything went crazy. People on the ship thought they were going to die. They thought it was like some bad omen. And Jonah said it was his fault because he was running from God. and what God told him to do. So the people basically threw him overboard, right? To try to save themselves. And that's when Jonah got swallowed by the whale. And it says it took him into the belly of the earth. All right. And, spending 3 days in the belly of the earth in a whale, Jonah kind of had a come to Jesus moment, like we all tend to sometimes in our lives. Right. And he was like, maybe I ought to, kind of do what the Lord told me he wanted me to do, just a thought. Right. So Jonah actually goes to Nineveh and he warns them that God is going to destroy the country. Now, a lot of people always tell me, but John, the people repented and God didn't destroy Nineveh. Wrong, wrong. It is true. The people lamented. They took Jonah serious and they repented, and God did hold off his judgment. But a very short time later, they went right back to their ways, and God said, boom, gone, destroyed. So God's prophecy was fulfilled and Nineveh was destroyed. All right. By the way, another little tangent that I like showing almost every show because it fits somehow. So I've shown this representation of a clay tablet. All right. That's written in cuneiform or Sanskrit. All right. And this happens to be from the epic story of Gilgamesh, which is super important. And I'll be covering that more in future episodes of my channel. This plate, though, is significant because it actually has first of all, the epic story of Gilgamesh is the oldest epic story in human recorded history. So that's gigantic. All right. Second of all, it's a secular source, but it gives a depiction of Noah's flood. Noah's flood. All right. Gilgamesh said he was a grandson of Noah, who he called immortal because he survived the flood and lived like 900 years. So he called him an immortal. But this actual little depiction of that tablet has the actual story of Noah's flood on here. That's what this piece is right here that I have in my hand. Okay. Now, another thing that's interesting about this is, where was this discovered? It was discovered in a library in more modern times in Nineveh, in the city of Nineveh, is where they found thousands of these tablets written in the cuneiform Sanskrit, which kind of just looks like it's funny. It looks like marks, little triangle marks that's thick on one side and pointed at the other, and they make lines and hashes that you know end up making a spelling out a language, right? That in modern times they've been able to decipher. So getting back to the story, but you see how these things all connect and how the circles all kind of come together and coalesce. That's what we're trying to do, and that's one of the things I try to do on my channel. And how it's different than other channels is I try to take the different things and piece the pieces of the puzzle together so we can step back and see a bigger picture. At least that's the intention. That's the goal, right? So again, that's why I'm trying to piece these things together. Plus, it just sticks in my craw that this and this just strikingly connect to this and the New Madrid fault line, which connects to this, which connects to this, which connects to our government already knows that this is going to take place if they don't actually cause it on purpose, as I've already discussed. Okay. And then again, this to this. All right. Striking. Now, if all that's not bad enough, let's go into the next little area of craziness, of high crazy. Should have called the show High Crazy, High Craziness. All right. Anyway, it's called the Harbinger Report because I'm harping about these signs of the times to wake people up to what's going on, and that the solution is turn to Jesus while you still can, because the times of the apocalypse are taking place now. That's how it's going. And it's not an accident that the start of my show starts off with, let me see, do I have a little clippage? That the start of my show starts off, I don't think I do, starts off with like nuclear explosions going off and a Holocaust, right? And survivors after, because that's what's coming. That's what's getting ready to take place. And I don't think anything crazy is going to happen on the day of the eclipse, but I do think it's a warning from God. And I do think it's a sign that's an omen for our country. And that it's a sign of the times in which we live. And I think one of those signs is that nuclear war and destruction of our country are coming very, very, very soon. Okay. And I hope and pray to God that I'm wrong on that. I really do. I tell family and friends, no one wants me to be more wrong than myself because I hate this stuff. I don't find pleasure in this. I do this to try to help other people and to try to help wake up other people or put some of the pieces together for people that make them think in a different way. And hopefully to lead them on the path to make them realize they need Jesus Christ in their life. It's the answer to everything. Getting married is not the answer to everything. Having children is not the answer to everything. Getting a good job is not the answer to everything. Having a nice truck is not the answer to everything. Jesus Christ is the answer to everything, to everything. And we've got to put him first. And we have little time left. God's given us, they said in the days of Noah, people were given over to each other in marriage. And it was just people were carrying on like a normal day until destruction and all of a sudden was upon them. And God told me it's going to be the exact same way when nukes start falling on the US. And the Lord told me that our country is going to fall in one single day. In fact, some places of the Bible calls it an hour, but I believe it's a day. I just think the hour is like an analogous to a day. You know what I'm saying? Um, and God told me the US will never rebuild. There will be survivors, but it won't be the same country ever again. It won't be about freedom. It won't be about liberty or independence. Um, it will be a different world and a different country, and it won't be anything nice or pleasant. The ones actually who die are probably more better off than the ones who are going to live in those times. And I'm not going to go into too much detail on that. I might cover that stuff. I might cover my prophecies on other shows that'll be just about those subjects. Okay. But getting back to this, signs of the times. I really like this picture. I would have used this for my thumbnail, except I wanted the moon to be black like this. I want it to be black because, like in the image I did choose, man, not only do I see that snake image in this, but on top of that, I see an open portal, and I think that the open portal is very significant, very significant. All right. So, and that leads us straight into our next little topic here of convo. Boom. Saturn Large Hadron Collider targets dark matter during the 2024 solar eclipse. Ah! You can't make this stuff up. All right. I mean, you just can't make this stuff up. This is crazy. So let's see. I'm trying to pull it up on my phone. So give me just a minute. And of course, my phone's going to act crazy and not let me go to what I'm trying to look for, which means I just got to ramble on about stuff for nothing. Okay. In an unprecedented scientific endeavor, CERN is set to harness the power of the world's most potent particle accelerator, the Large Hadron Collider, LHC, during the total solar eclipse of 2024. This experiment aims to shed light on the elusive dark matter, also known as antimatter. And antimatter, just so you know, in case you don't know, is the most destructive force and power in our universe. So you think of nuclear bombs, atomic bombs, hydrogen bombs, fusion bombs for that matter. They are nothing, 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 nothing close to what antimatter is or has the potential to do. Antimatter is so volatile that there's probably almost nothing that would ever surpass it in its ability of destruction and chaos. All right. That's, hate to put it that way, but and that's what they're creating at CERN. They're trying to like, hey, let's use this to build some of the most destructive stuff in the universe. All right. You know what I mean? Um, so so that's not good. Anyway, going on. Where are we? Dark matter. That is believed to constitute a significant portion of the universe's mass. So what they're saying there is when we look at the stars in the sky at night, and we think of nothingness, just vast openness. Well, apparently scientists say that there's probably more there than we understand, but it's antimatter versus matter. So that nothingness actually comprises antimatter. All right. Um, but antimatter, unlike matter, the physical world, the matter in the physical world is stabilized. Like this is not a bomb. This doesn't blow up. It's stable. I can throw it on the ground. It's not going to explode. It's stable. Antimatter is extremely unstable. It lives in a state of chaos, if you will. And they have to have special magnetic containers even to hold this stuff. But anyway, now I can tell you this. Also, members of the secret space program, like I interviewed with Daryl on one of my episodes, many they claim, people in that program, and I've heard this multiple times from witnesses that claim that they were in these programs. They claim that there are different types of propulsion for the U.S. space fleets, Solar Warden. All right, but now what they operate on is antimatter. That's actually the fuel of the craft, antimatter. And it's very difficult for them to source that fuel because it's crazy. I know I won't go into the high craziness of how they get it, but let's get back to this. So during the total eclipse, the dark matter, significant portion of the universe's mass, scheduled to coincide with the celestial event, the LHC, will accelerate protons at near the speed of light, recreating conditions akin to those just after the Big Bang, in hopes of unveiling the secrets surrounding dark matter, antimatter. If it's dark, it's not good. um, Antimatter influences on universal formation. Okay, so it's just insane. And basically, what I was reading is this next little clip. It's just insane that this stuff is going on right now. Right? It's just insanity, and there's no other way to put it. So let's see. Let's move on. Boom. See what we got next here. Okay, that's the red heifer. Yeah, I'm a swing back to the red heifer. A lot of people are talking about the prophecy of the red heifer, and I just thought I would touch on it tonight, since that's also a big question. The two biggest questions this last week have been the solar eclipse and the red heifer. So I'm going to cover both, but I'm going to stay on target until I finish up the Sarin stuff. I mean I'm sorry, the eclipse stuff, and then I'll swing back. So let's check this out.
Okay, on April 8th, 2024, there will be another total solar eclipse that will mark an X right across the nation of the United States. That alone seems to have some sort of prophetic significance, as well as the fact that that takes place just a few days before the Passover that year. But also, on October 14th, 2023, this year, another annular solar eclipse is going to cross the United States. And what's truly incredible about all of that, when you mark this all on a map, it looks exactly like the first letter of the Hebrew alphabet, the Aleph. Some other pretty incredible things surrounding this is that on October 14th, 2023, when the annular solar eclipse will take place across the United States, that is also the day of the new moon in Jerusalem. And then on April 8th, 2024, when we get the next total solar eclipse that crosses the United States, marking the X, is that there's another new moon in Jerusalem on that date. And also April 8th happens to be the first day of the first month on the Hebrew calendar, and so it's the marking of a brand new biblical year on that date. In Luke 21:25, after Jesus says that there will be signs in the sun, moon, and stars in the last days, he said that there will also be distress of nations. Israel and Jerusalem being an absolute focal point for what takes place in the last days. It's incredible to see that lately there has been distress in Israel.
Tonight, there is unrest across Israel on the eve of a defining moment, even as Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu recovers from an emergency heart procedure. The 73-year-old Prime Minister said he's in excellent health and said he will be in the Knesset Monday when his right-wing ruling coalition is set to pass the first part of his judicial overhaul plan. Opposition to the plan reached a climax this weekend with mass protests across the country. The bitter disagreement reflects the deep split in Israel between those who want a more secular and diverse nation and those with a more religious and nationalistic vision.
Recently, France has been seeing massive unrest take place, just another nation to add to the list that's experiencing distress.
Molotov cocktails directed at the police, burning buses, and looting. For days on end, riots spread across France.
The prophecies of the last days and what the world will look like in the end times, I don't think is just going to happen overnight. It seems that these things are going to have to be built up to that very point, and it seems like that's what we're getting a glimpse of right now.
Okay, I'm not a big fan of playing videos that don't have words, but that was important because that showed, kind of the connection with Jonah and the whale and Nineveh, and I want to expand on that.
The solar eclipse is coming next month and will cross over many cities named Nineveh. Now, what is the significance of this, and what is God saying? There was a biblical scholar named Donald Wiseman, and he speculated that the eclipse took place around the time that Jonah arrived in Nineveh and urged the people to repent, otherwise the city would have been destroyed. Now, the path on April 8th for the U.S. eclipse passes directly over or nearby these towns. Look at this: Nineveh, Texas; Nineveh, Missouri; Nineveh, Indiana; Nineveh, Ohio; Nineveh, Pennsylvania; Nineveh, Virginia; Nineveh, New York; Nineveh, Nova Scotia. Now, Nineveh is mentioned in the Bible, most notably in the book of Jonah, where it was associated with a city full of sin and vice. Now, prior to its fall, however, Nineveh was the largest urban center in the world. Now, as the story is related in the book of Jonah, the prophet Jonah was called by God to go to Nineveh and to prophesy disaster if they did not repent because of their excessive wickedness. Now, Jonah wanted nothing to do with Nineveh. He did not listen to God. And we all know the story of Jonah, but thank God the second time he listened and he went to Nineveh and preached to them, and they listened and they repented. So is this eclipse coming a sign from God because of the significance of all the cities named Nineveh? What do you think? Comment below. But nonetheless, we have to get ready because God is coming soon. Comment below.
A lot of people are like, John, you can't say God's coming soon because the Bible says that nobody knows the day or the hour, that only God the Father knows that. Well, that is true. That is true when it comes to the basically the end of time and man's judgment. Jesus did warn us that we could know the season of the end times. And he said that in Matthew, Mark, and Luke. All right. When he pulled the apostles aside and they're like, hey, what were you talking about back there? And Jesus says, I speak to them in parables. I'll speak plain to you. The fit's going to hit the shan. Well, when are these times going to happen? They ask. And Jesus says, well, when you see the seasons and you know that in the season, it's time to sow the wheat and reap the harvest, right? So in the same way, you can see the signs and know the season you're in. And that's what Jesus says about the end times. So don't tell me we can't know the time we're in or when these times are coming. We're in the season now. Wake the hell up. That's what it's all about. And that's why I'm here. That's what the Harbinger Report's about and trying to tell you. It's not just talking about Dogman, which is one of my favorite subjects and everybody else's too, it seems. But let's see. Let's go on next.
Stop and listen. Just when you thought you had heard all of the crazy coincidences about the April 8th eclipse, we find out that CERN has been preparing for the past month to go full power on April 8th during the total solar eclipse in North America. Their goal, well, as the article states, is to give them insight into the formation of the universe and even its ultimate fate. Also, they'll be on the hunt for dark matter. That sounds pleasant. And yes, I know that's a scientific name for antimatter, but let's take a look at this deeper with spiritual eyes here. As some of you may already know, they erected a statue of Shiva, the destroyer, right there at the facility in CERN, who also appears to be standing in front of a portal. And if you think it's interesting that a facility that want to find the end of the universe would erect the statue of the destroyer, it's even more interesting that it was built on what used to be the Temple of Apollo, and also the people that live there believe it's a gateway to the underworld. Now in Revelation 9 verse 11, it talks about the king over the pit, which would be Abaddon, but in the Greek tongue his name is Apollyon, Apollo, Apollyon. Interesting similarity there. Well, on March 8th, they began running their preliminary test as they geared up for full power on April 8th. What else happened on March 8th? That's right, it's the Great Night of Shiva, where they celebrate Shiva. Definitely not a ritualistic date to pick, though. Especially not for a facility that has an erected statue of Shiva in the middle of it. Now, in case you think I'm being drastic, what does the culture think of Shiva? Well, it believes that Shiva is the god of destruction, said to be the one that destroys the universe at the end of days. So nothing nefarious to see here. I'm sure that it's all just a coincidence. Well, if you have spiritual eyes, you'll see that what they're trying to do is tear into another reality, or as you will, open the pit to the great abyss. It's a spiritual pit that will be opened. CERN has already admitted to open many black holes, so we know that they're tearing through the fabric of realities. I just don't think they know what's waiting for them on the other side. Or maybe they do. Either way, stay prayed up, trust in Jesus, follow God, and love one another. It's time that we repent and we come together as the body of Christ. Much love. Shalom.
See, I'm not the only messenger of this. God is sending out many, many, many people right now to be messengers of this time and of these pulling these things together and having, like you said, eyes to see. Having eyes to see. You know, one of the things God talks about in this time we're living in is a great deception that comes over the masses. And why does God speak of a great deception? There's a spiritual veil right now in the world, especially as dark and evil as the world that's becoming. And you know what God says, Romans 1, about evil? When you become too evil, God abandons you to your own desires, your own passions, your own lusts, and your own idol gods, if you will. Even if that's one of the worst ones, the idol of the god of the flesh. All right. Biden declared Easter, Christianity's greatest holiday, next to Christmas, the birth of Christ, the death and resurrection of Christ, the two biggest days of the Christian calendar for Christians to celebrate. All right. And Biden announces he's going to make it, you know, a big pride event. So he just on his own says, we're going to take one of Christianity's most beloved, celebrations, and we're going to turn it into something completely secular that's anti-religious and completely secular. Like, oh yeah, there's no contradiction there. I mean, there's no clearer case of the devil fighting against Christianity than that. I mean, just look that up. That, I think that was announced today. Okay. So, yeah, like I said, that there couldn't be a clearer sign of the times that we're in. Let me see what I have
Time
here
to
now.
reveal the red heifer.
So that's a red heifer. Okay. So, what do I have here at the end? Let me check this out.
NASA has unveiled plans to launch.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. So now, just again to recap, especially those that might have joined later. Okay. Very quickly. Okay. So everyone knows we've got the eclipse that's coming. Okay. We know the trajectory that it's going to take. And I'm trying to warn people that not only has our own government declared this a state of emergency, and that's interesting too, because our government is doing drills with the National Guard in a lot of places, and Why are they doing drills at this time and event? And they're thinking people are just going to go crazy. Um, and you've had states, actually multiple states, declare a state of emergency and drills being run. So that's really ominous. But again, if you take the 2017 path of the eclipse with the April 8th, 2024 coming path of the eclipse, and that it makes the X across the country, and it happens to be in almost the exact same spot, if not the exact spot, of what I've pieced together here from my own prophecy that I've heard also others also talk about, which is the new Madrid fault line, which happens to be in the same place where that X is going to cross the spot. The New Madrid fault line again goes from the bottom of Michigan all the way through Louisiana. All right. Here again, from the bottom of the Michigan and the Great Lakes down, curves a little bit down to Louisiana. And I claim that that New Madrid fault line, whether it's created on its own or whether it's artificially created with weapons and technology that we have and know exists to this day, then I claim it's going to create an opening in the crack. Not saying it's going to happen on the day of the eclipse, although it could. Hope not, because I'll be dead. But as well as many others. But eventually, the New Madrid fault line is going to have a major eruption, and it's going to cause a splitting of the U.S. That's going to cause the Great Lakes to drain into it, becoming the new Mississippi. It's going to divide the eastern part of the U.S. with the central part of the U.S. in half, stateswide, and it's going to sink. Louisiana is going to completely be sunk in the ground, just like this. I saw this in a vision. And let me tell you, I hate to break it to you, but the visions and prophecies I have, they all come true. So if God showed this to me, I promise you, before Almighty God, this is the future of our country. And the crazy part about this is our government already knows all about it. This is the U.S. Future Maps of America that our own government has created. FEMA also, I heard reports, knows about this and already has plans in place for this event, for the U.S. to split in half. Like I said, the most likely thing would be the New Madrid fault line, that it would become a waterway from there, draining out to the Gulf of Mexico, and the states in between there being swallowed up. In fact, Louisiana not existing on a map at all in the near future. Also, I made another connection to this, the solar eclipse, where eerily it strikes me of this symbol, which is something else the Lord told me about many times years ago. That when He told me that when the snake eats its tail, the gates of hell shall open. When the snake eats its tail, the gates of hell shall open. This eerily looks like a ring with almost a snake head on it, almost eating its tail, and it creates a portal, right? And I'll do other shows where I talk about portals, and why it's so important, especially in occult mysticism. All right. Now that we covered that, so we got the high craziness going on here. All right. And also we talked about how I showed the videos of how it's not a coincidence that it's running through all these places called Jonah and Nineveh. All right. These towns. And it's taking the direct path of those all the way across the U.S. into Nineveh, Canada. All right. I forget the exact name where in Canada, but y'all can look it up. Someone sent it to me earlier. But anyway, so that said, if you take all those pieces of the puzzle and then you take the fact that, oh, it's not just that and foreboding, but then Saren, who hasn't fired up in years, all of a sudden picks this moment that they're going to fire up. And why? Could it possibly be to create portals? The stars align for them to have their portals open, for them to do their occult dark magic and get their stuff done. I question. Now, if that's not crazy enough, there's also something else, and that is NASA has decided that they're also going to take advantage of this time so they can fire rockets at the moon during the eclipse. How great is that? I mean, you can't make this stuff up. It's crazy. All right, so check this out.
NASA has unveiled plans to launch 3 scientifically oriented rockets into the moon's shadow on Monday, April the 8th, coinciding with a partial solar eclipse spanning North America. During this celestial event, which will feature a total solar eclipse along a 115-mile wide path across parts of Mexico, 15 U.S. states and Canada, and a partial eclipse throughout the Americas, there will be a noticeable decrease in sunlight. NASA's initiative, dubbed Atmospheric Perturbations Around the Eclipse's Path, also known as APEP, aims to explore the effects of this decrease in sunlight and temperature on the Earth's upper atmosphere. APEP draws its name from the ancient Egyptian mythological serpent deity, a nemesis of the sun god Ra, as per NASA, Forbes has reported. APEP, an ancient Egyptian deity, symbolized darkness and chaos, serving as the adversary of light, and Ma'at, which represents order and truth. Ra, on the other hand, represented illumination, making him the primary antagonist of APEP. The suborbital rockets will not ascend into totality, but will instead launch from Wallops Flight Facility on Wallops Island, Virginia, where 81% of the sun will be obscured by the moon. This event is slated to occur at 3:33 p.m. Eastern Standard Time.
3:33 p.m. That's interesting. What was the hour that Christ died on the cross? I'm sure that's just a coincidence too, right? Anyway, tying this off, I wanted to. So we talked about the solar eclipse. We talked about how I say I'm the only person I know that's made this connection here, and it's based on visions and prophecies that God's given me, and that is that there's a connection between where that X is going to line up and where the new Madrid fault line is on our country. And I don't think that's a coincidence. I think it's a warning and a sign of things to come. I don't think anything's going to happen on that day. I hope not. Could, but I'm hoping that's not the case. But I believe it is a final warning, if you will, for what eventually is coming very soon. And it could be that new Madrid. It could also mean nuclear war. All right. It could be both. I do know that eventually, whether it's soon or later, that New Madrid is going to erupt, and it is going to split the U.S. and Louisiana is going to not exist on a map in the near future, and that is, I claim that is absolute truth and absolutely will happen. The visions God showed me, they all come true, so that's going to happen. I absolutely believe that. So now getting into, I want to add to this also. Let's see, one more time recap. So we got the eclipse. We got the cross of the eclipse. We showed how the cross of the eclipse follows the path of Nineveh, which was a warning in the Old Testament that God was going to destroy the country because of the sin of the people. So this is a warning from God that God is going to destroy the U.S. because we have lost God as a country and we have chosen to serve Satan. And you see this in the values in our schools, in our government, in our media, in our entertainment. There's no way anyone can deny this. If you do, you're completely brainwashed and just a fool. So most people that have eyes to see, people that are spiritual people, people that are believers, people who have love for God and each other, they're going to have eyes to see. Some of those people are going through the motions and they're just fake, and they won't, even though they call themselves Christian and say they go to church. But for those that have the eyes to see, you will see. All right. So that said, we made the connection with the cross, with the new Madrid fault line, with Nineveh and the coming destruction. And I showed the new Madrid fault line and how our government already knows about this and is already preparing for this. Yet they're not telling anybody about it. You don't see them coming out saying, hey, we know this is going to happen, so you need to evacuate these states before you all die. No, they're not telling anybody, even though they've got plans for what to do when it takes place. All right. I heard reports of that and witnesses that claimed that to be the case. We also talked about how Saturn Hadron Collider just happens to represent Shiva, the god of destruction that destroys this world. Think that's a coincidence? No way. And they're timing up their Hadron Collider at the same time of this eclipse. That's not an accident. You got to understand, these eclipses coincide with secret society occult rituals, that this is a high ritual time for them. Kind of like Easter supposed to be for Christians until Biden decided to turn it pagan secular, you know? Um, but that said, so we talk about how Saren's throwing their hat in the game. And then if that's not enough, NASA decides to launch rockets and they're going to play their little games too, all at the same time. So that's high craziness. And that leads us into the next
Time to
thing.
reveal the Red Heifer schedule. The Red Heifers are only days away from being mature enough to slaughter. This Wednesday, Israel's having a conference to discuss the ritual. The heifers have to be 2 years and 2 months old, and that happens in just a few days. Oh, but first, this is what happens after they slaughter it. This makes it to where all the Jews are pure, and it enables hundreds of thousands of religious Jews to enter the Al-Aqsa Mosque, who currently refrain from doing so out of their adherence to the official rabbinic prohibition. So by slaughtering them, they can just waltz into the mosque, and guess what's going to happen? In the article, it says it's going to multiply danger, so this is Jordan News, and the day it's going to happen is April 10th. That's when the heifers are fully aged enough, 2 years and 2 months, and they can be slaughtered, and here we go.
Okay, he said a lot there, but there's a lot of significance in what he said. Okay, I've been to Israel, and I've been to the Holy Land, and I've been to the Temple Mount, and I'm very honored and blessed to have been able to do so. You approach the Wailing Wall, all right, and the Wailing Wall is the only wall that still is in existence to this day from the rebuilding of the Second Temple in Jerusalem. So it is high holiness to the Israel and the Jewish nation. Okay, excuse me. So I went to the Wailing Wall. It's traditional that you write a prayer and you fold it up and place it in the cracks of the wall and go pray there. And I did that, just to honor the tradition and everything else. Now, this area is hard fought over, okay? Because right to the right of the Wailing Wall, you have these steps going up to basically the Temple Mount area. The Jewish people will not go up there. Will not step foot up there because they believe somewhere up there is where the Ark of the Covenant once was housed in the temple. To them, that's called the Holy of Holies. It's the greatest, most holiest object in their religion. So out of respect to that, they don't go up there and they won't approach the Temple Mount. Now, when you go up to the Temple Mount, to the left, there's some old ruins that you can walk on that, is part of the old temple, possibly, where they don't want to step on. Then directly in front of you is the Dome of the Rock. Now, to the side of that, over to the right, you have the Great Mosque. And it's a giant Muslim temple, all right, the Great Mosque. And it's completely Muslim for the Palestinians that live there, right? Now, the Dome of the Rock is probably the most significant item up there because the Dome of the Rock has a rock in it. And if you're American today, you can't go in there. But I was lucky enough to go in there. And I was able to put my hands on the rock. I went up there and just like, boom. I was like, yeah, I got my hands on here. But anyway, it looks like a giant meteorite. It's like a giant rock that's pitted. It has a little wall around it. And but it looks like a large, if you've ever seen like a meteorite, it's a very pitted. It's like a little ball that has holes all over it, jagged holes. That's what it looked like. But the Dome of the Rock is significant because to Christians, we believe that this is where Abraham was going to sacrifice Isaac, was upon that rock. So it's super important to Christians. Well, Muslims believe that rock is the point where Muhammad ascended into heaven, leaving the earth. So to them, that rock is super sacred. So it's sacred to the Christians, and to the Jews, it was actually a part of the second temple. It was a part of the second temple. Got to charge a device. Sorry. Okay. So in fact, there's a small teacup tradition in theology that when King David was building actually the first temple, that rock was in the way of one of the walls or something for the temple. So King David ordered that they move that rock, and an angel appeared and said, "Do not move this rock. It is one of the seals to the abyss, like to hell, if you will, you know." So David ordered it to be moved anyway. And as soon as they started prying it up with their pry bars and it started to lift, they said floodwaters started just pouring out of this thing. So David ordered them, seal it, seal it, seal it. So they put the rock back down. Um, and that's in the old tradition. Also, I saw one time that you can actually, there's a spot in the rock where you can actually go down inside it a little bit, and it's like a little bitty cave kind of thing to one portion of it or something. I don't know, but I didn't go that far. I just put my hands on it. You can't even walk in there today. I put my hands on it. But anyway, so so basically, the rock is sacred to the Israelites, the Jews, the Jewish people there. It's sacred to the Muslim Palestinians there, and it's sacred to the Christians. And all three kind of fight over it. It's funny how that works. I mean, I was in Jerusalem where I'm in a church, and you've got this group gets into a almost a fist fight with this group, and then gets in a fist fight with that group. It's like it's just chaos. There's so much hatred and anger, and these people are constantly arguing and fighting with each other. It's just, and yet they're all supposed to represent religion. You know, supposed to be the opposite of all that violence and hatred. But it's crazy how that is. Anyway, and then outside the Dome of the Rock, which is in the center, you go to the right and you have the Temple Mosque, and it's the Great Mosque, and also I think like the third holiest object in Islam. All right, temple. Now, think what's going on today. All right, recently. All right, now here's the bigger picture, and this is what the guy was referring to in the video, although he did it really fast, so that's why I'm trying to break it down a little bit. Look at the bigger picture of what's going on today. The state of Israel and the Jewish nation, they want to reclaim the Dome of the Rock and the Great Mosque because they sit on the temple site of where they want to build their third temple. Okay, their third temple, which they already have the plans to do, and that's what the heifers are all about, by the way. That's how that ties into all this, okay? Well, Islam will fight to the death for the dome because they now have possession of the Dome of the Rock and of the Great Mosque, okay? And they will fight war, literal war. I mean, straight out war to maintain possession of those two sites. In fact, man, if you want to go back to like the Crusades times, that was all fighting over the territory and possession of those places. It goes way back. This is a nonstop war that's just been on pause, if you will, since ancient times. All right, just over and over. I will claim there's been a lot of heated debate recently over what's going on with the attacks in Israel and Jerusalem. Now, all of a sudden, Hamas supposedly attacks Jerusalem, and then Jerusalem says, okay, we're tired of these people. We're just going to eliminate them all. All right. Oh, and coincidentally, in that process, hey, we just happened to get our Temple Mound back so that we can now build our third temple. You see what I'm saying? See where this is going? I claim that this was all a setup. This was a setup that Israel, and I've got nothing against Israel. And I tell you what, when I was there, I really didn't care for what I saw with the Palestinians in Islam. And I didn't care for a lot of what I saw with the Jewish stuff too, although I respect the Jewish side a whole lot more. However, that said, I think this was an artificially created attack on themselves to give them a justification or excuse, if you will, to wipe out the Palestinians so that they could reclaim the possession of the Temple Mount, of the Dome of the Rock and the Great Mosque. So, for the purpose of rebuilding their third temple. That's my personal belief. That's what I think happened. I think it was a false flag event that they did to attack themselves in order to justify basically a genocide of the people there. And we've seen in the news women and children that have been wiped out and affected by this. And I don't want to get too much into taking sides and all, but I'm just calling it the facts the way I see them and what I believe and with my heart and spiritual eyes. Now I could be wrong. I could be wrong. But this is what I believe based on what's going on. So what my heart, my intuition tells me. And I tell you what, my intuition is doggone accurate. You can ask some friends of mine. My intuition is spot on. But anyway, that said, now think about this. The whole concept of building the third temple. I just like doing this, the whole concept of building the third temple is that's all Antichrist prophecy, you know. For the Jews, they believe that it'll bring about their Messiah. The problem is their Messiah was Jesus, and they rejected him. Jesus said in the New Testament, he gave this prophecy. He says, I came in my Father's name, and you rejected me, meaning the Jewish people, nation people. And he says, but another shall come in my name, and you shall accept him. So Jesus gave a prophecy that you denied your Messiah, but you're going to accept the Antichrist as though he was the Messiah. You see what I'm saying? I've also long believed, and this is just my own personal opinion here, that you would have the false prophet that would take over and rule in Rome, which I believe is Francis, and I'm Catholic. Now, I'm a Catholic theologian. I believe that Francis is the false prophet. I think he's evil. I think he's evil to the core. I don't think that man's good at all. I think that he and his crew forced Benedict out of office, and I think they were complicit in his death as well, on purpose. He's a globalist communist. I don't believe you cannot from a ideological standpoint and philosophy, you cannot be a communist and be a Christian. You cannot, or socialist, which is two sides of the same coin. And there's been 5 popes before Francis that have said that. They said you can't be a communist, socialist, even a moderate one, and call yourself a Christian. Cannot, because they're two opposing ideologies. That's like a Christian calling himself a Satanist. You can't do it. They're two completely polarized opposite ideologies. So, and Francis has already come out and said he's a socialist, and he believed that Jesus Christ was too. Which, by the way, that's called sacrilege. All right, that's called a sacrilege. All right, that's Jesus was not a socialist, and he wasn't political at all. Let alone taking sides on socialism, which is absolute trash. Socialism, communism, and evil always go together. Look at any evil people in history. Socialism, communism, fascism, they always go with evil. Always. And they always go with trying to tear down society because they're very effective tools at destroying societies from within. We saw it in the French Revolution. We saw it in the Bolshevik Revolution in Russia. We've seen it. We saw it in the Eastern Bloc. And we all see that they fail. They always, in time, they always fail. It failed in Russia. It failed in the Eastern Bloc. Socialism, communism ultimately does not work. It's just a system. They're like, oh, we need a better system. Capitalism sucks, so we're going to replace it with slavery. I mean, really? Oh, yeah, that's better. Yeah, let's tear it all down and have trash and nothing left. Right. Makes total sense, right? Anyway, going off on a tangent here. But anyway, just pointing out some of the political issues that revolve around this heated topic right now that's going on. So I believe that the false prophet will rule in Rome and in the Vatican, okay, take over the Vatican and rule there. And there's plenty of Catholic prophecies that say that will take place, like the prophecies of Akita, the prophecies of La Salette. These are prophecies, some 100 years old, that say that the devil would infiltrate the Vatican and take over and rule there, and that Rome itself would lose the faith, and We're seeing that now with Francis and his followers. Okay. We're seeing that. We're seeing a schism in the Catholic Church, a big one. And that's something the Lord told me was a sign of the rapid rise of the Antichrist to power on the world scene in a one world government, a new world order. God's words that he told me when I was a kid. All right. When I was a kid, he said the U.S. is going to be destroyed. He said that it's going to be destroyed in a day. He said it was God told me it was his will that the U.S. is destroyed for one reason and one reason only, and that was because of the sin of abortion. The sin of abortion. God told me the sin of abortion has sealed the fate of the United States. Its destruction is assured because of abortion. Above any other sin or offense against God, and today there are many. There are many, like making an idol of the flesh over the 10 commandments and serving Christ. All right. So now that reminds me, Mother Teresa of Calcutta, who I highly respect, she was given a Nobel Peace Prize. And when she gave her acceptance speech, the Clintons were sitting right in the front row, kind of mocking her, you know. And you know what she said? She said this in her speech. She said, "The fruit of abortion is nuclear war." The fruit of abortion is nuclear war. She didn't say those words idly. That was a prophecy. She was giving you a prophecy from God in front of some of the most, highest levels of power of politicians in our country at the time. And they're all laughing in her face, mocking her. But she said, the fruit of abortion is nuclear war. She's saying that our country is going to be destroyed by nuclear war because of the sin of abortion against God. Same thing God told me when I was a little kid several years before. So do I think it's a coincidence? No. Do I think it's going to happen? You can rest assured it's going to happen. It's going to happen. What's the solution? The solution is turn your heart to Jesus. Ask for forgiveness. Try to draw close to him while there's still time. While there's still time. God will not refuse a humbled and contrite heart. That's from King David. The words of King David. God will not refuse a humble and contrite heart. If we turn back to God with a humble and contrite heart, God will help us and he will accept us. But develop that relationship while there's time. That's the solution. Whether we live, whether we don't, that doesn't matter. The only thing that matters in this life is, did we do what it takes to get into eternity? Did we do what it takes to get into heaven? That's the only thing that matters. Your kids, do they get in this school or that school, this job, that job? Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. What matters is, where do they go when they die? If your kids have turned away from God, pray, pray, pray hard that they turn back. If they're not living a godly life and don't repent of that, then we failed. Because the sole purpose for our children is to get into heaven, to get into eternity. And our entire lifetime is like that. It's like that. I'm sorry, I couldn't resist. This world and all of its pain and suffering will be the blink of an eye compared to what eternity is going to be. And God doesn't choose where we go. We do. We determine by the choices we've made. And God will not force himself on us. The devil will, more than happy to. Like the mark of the beast that's soon to come. All right. With the rise of the one world government and the digital currency system, all that's coming, all that's together, all that's in the works, all that's coming. Like I said, Bill Gates has spoken about it. He said, yeah, man, it's going to speak directly to your brain, AI, and tell you what to do. And if you follow it, you get money in your digital account. But if you don't follow it, you get punished. Slavery. That's what it is. Nothing's private anymore because it monitors and sees and knows everything you do. And it can follow everyone in real time at the same time because it's a super advanced intelligence. I think one of these quantum computers, they said, had the quantum computing of something like over 300 billion brains in one computer. And these computers are built with what's called wetware as opposed to hardware. I need to do a show one time just on what the quantum computers are, because people have no idea the technology of the quantum computers. They literally do their calculations in other dimensions. So, in other words, you're connecting with um, entities from other dimensions when you use these computers. All right. Gordy Rose, the founder of D-Wave, said that standing in front of one of these feels like you're standing at an altar of an alien god. That's not a coincidence, because that's he's saying he's telling you exactly what it is. That's exactly what it is. Even Elon Musk said, "Hey, this is the greatest threat to civilization." He says AI, because we're going to create a overlord that we can never escape from. Never. Once you unleash that beast, he's like, we're regulating nuclear weapons, but we don't regulate AI, which is thousands of times more dangerous than nuclear weapons everywhere. But there's no regulation. You know what I'm saying? And it's not like our government will abuse these things. You know what I mean? Given the power ability to do so. There's already like stories of AI robots that have broken out of labs and gone on killing sprees. Now, that's just stories. I have nothing to substantiate that. But you know what? Nothing in the world today would surprise me at all. I mean, just beyond the point of surprise with the high craziness that's going on in our world today. You know what I mean? Okay. So getting back to the heifer. Now, what's crazy about this? Okay, so imagine this for a second. Israel gets rid of the Palestinians. They're able to then reclaim the Dome of the Rock. They're able to reclaim the Temple Mosque, the Great Mosque. Now that inevitably will start war. Okay. Another thing too. Excuse me. Hold on. Another thing. My intuition tells me the war isn't so much going to start with Russia as it is going to start with the Middle East as far as nuclear war. Now, eventually, Russia's going to get involved. There's no question. And I tell you, there's so much to keep in mind on all this stuff to try to process it. Okay, so Tucker Carlson was threatened by our government that they might charge him as a spy or treason if he went and spoke to Putin. Why? That's what journalists are supposed to do. If you're a responsible journalist, that's what you should be doing. All right. There's no question. You should be doing journalism and listen to the other side's views, takes. Our government was desperate to stop that. And why? I'll tell you why. Because they were afraid that Putin would say exactly what he said. And this is what he said. I want to de-escalate. I want to end this conflict so it doesn't expand to all-out war. But nobody will return my call. Nobody will come to do peace talks. In fact, Germany last week declared we're preparing to go to war. France declared with Macron that they're planning to go to war. Poland has been talking about getting ready to go to war. The UN is talking and threatening to go into war. What does this tell you? What does it tell you? If Putin's saying, I want to stop this, but no one else will even willing to talk about it, what does that tell you? What does that tell? He's not stupid. That means they want war. They flat out want war. But here's the kicker. They want to make it look like Putin is the bad guy and that Putin starts this. So they're trying to do aggressiveness to Putin, which is why the U.S. created a proxy war with the UN to use the Ukraine as a means just to declare war and attack Russia. It has nothing to do. Why are we paying for it? Because it's our war. It's our war. Zelensky is a little midget puppet who doesn't know how to dress. I mean, holy cow, man. Going on around all these world leaders, stop wearing t-shirts. You little, well, I don't want to be disparaging to midgets or short people or whatever the PC term is for being a little person today. All right. No offense. I'm I'm part retarded myself, so that's that's my disability. So that's why I can get away with saying stupid stuff like that. And it's true. That's how I identify. So you can't attack me for offending somebody else because that's part of my disability. Anyway, so they're trying to goad Putin into starting a nuclear war because they know he's the big man with the big stick. And if you keep pushing the big man with the big stick, eventually he's going to swing that stick and knock you out. And that's what they want. They want to be seen as the good guys. They want to be able to blame him for what's going on right now. All right. This is the bigger picture of what's happening. So they want to be able to blame Putin for starting war when they're the ones really instigating all this. He wants peace. He's suing for peace. They're not giving it to him because they want war. Now, you look at the terrorist attack that happened in the mall in Moscow, and that's deplorable. All right. Just like doing genocide in Israel. I don't care what side you stand on. Genocide in people is wrong. It's wrong. It's wrong. And you're just using it as an excuse to steal what they have so you can use it for yourselves. Just like what took place in Maui. All right. Oh, we're gonna burn up the whole town and then steal the town, the land from the people and build resorts here for the rich. Really? The governor already said that's what they were intending to do. Nothing to do with the people that lost everything or even reimbursing them. You know what I'm saying? It's theft. Just like there shouldn't be genocide. What's going on? Look, I have no love for Palestinians. I do not care for Islam for many reasons. It's just an ideological difference. Now, I'm sure there are many good Muslim people out there, and I don't have a problem with that. The problem is Islam says it's at war with Christianity. That's a fact, right? It's a fact. And if you listen to their imams, they are telling their people, go to the West, create a jihad against the West, take their wives and children and outbreed them, and we'll win the country that way from within without bullets. And if you study what's going on in Western nations, that's exactly what's taking place. Parts of England, parts of Sweden, the demographics have been changed forever. All because the globalists are using weaponized migration, weaponized replacement migration. Now, what is that? If you look at the UN and pull up, they have a whole page on replacement migration. I call it weaponized replacement migration because what they're doing is flooding Western countries with these immigrants and they're passing laws that protect the immigrants but take away rights from the citizens. And I just got back from Vancouver, and you know what I didn't see there? There's no Canadians in Vancouver. They've all been run off by Chinese, Muslims, and East Indians, the immigrants. And when I went there, they're like, John, man, you got to be careful what you say. We know you like to speak your mind, and you're very vocal about how you feel about things. And they said, but here's the thing, man. You can go to jail here if you offend a migrant. And by the way, if you really look at the law, you don't even have to say or do anything to actually offend a migrant. If a migrant feels offended, regardless of what you did or said, you go to jail. Now, how does that make sense? I'll tell you exactly how it makes sense. Because they don't want any of the citizens to open their damn mouths or do a damn thing to stop these immigrants from pushing them out of their own towns and their own jobs and their own homes to take over. That's how. Because it's a government takeover. It's a replacement migration. And these people believe if we just get rid of all the white people, we get rid of Christianity along with it. That's what they believe. They've stated this. I've heard them state this. So, and that's why you see all this whole inclusive with the Disney war going on right now, where they're like, oh, we're using this inclusive DEI, diversity, inclusion, what I don't know, inclusiveness. And basically what they're saying is, just like the South Park show where Carmen says, stick a woman in and turn her gay. You know, and that's the answer for everything. And it pretty much is. I mean, look, they're like, hey, the X-Men. Oh, we're just making them all female now. Oh, we're making some of them gay. And you know, any movie or show now that, especially superheroes, that's what they're doing. Like this last superhero movie that bombed, two superhero movies that bombed, Madam Web, all female. We're just going to replace all the men. We're going to replace Spider-Man with women. And then you had the Marvels, which was an utter catastrophe. We're just going to, you know, make the women all heroes. And the crazy thing is, it's not like you didn't have you know, before you had equality when you had the Avengers, you had the superheroes, but you always had women that were there too that held their own and did a good job, you know. So why all of a sudden does it have to be one-sided? See, the thing is, they say they want inclusion, they want equality, but it's not about equality, it's about domination. Because now that they're in there and have the so-called equality, it's not enough. Now it's just got to be us, and it can't be you. That's not equality. They talk about diversion and equality. They're the most unequality people out there. Like California, Hollywood. I used to work in Hollywood. I don't want anything to do with it now. Why? The main reason, because you can only think one way. If you think anything other than one way, you're blackballed, you're banned, you're out. That's not equality. That's not freedom. That's not inclusiveness. That's the opposite of the words they use. But this is why you see every single commercial, every TV show, every movie now, only a woman can be in charge. If it's a president in any show, it has to be a woman. It's if a sheriff in any show, it has to be a woman. And it's not to say that you couldn't have women to do this, but to only say that women can do it in everything, and you're just bombarded with that all the time. That's not right. And it's not right. It's not equality, you know? And then, and then on the other hand of that too, to say we're just going to remove all the men, and just replace them all with women, then or we're going to have the men be like a super weak character and dumb, like in that Ghostbusters movie where they replaced all the Ghostbusters with women, and the one male guy they put in there, they make him a complete baffling idiot that doesn't know if he's got lenses in his glasses. You know, I mean, beyond idiocy. That said, I still enjoyed the movie. I don't enjoy the political correctness of it, but they still did a good job, I thought, with it. And I love Thor, even if he plays a baffling idiot. I mean, just gotta love. And I like guys that don't take themselves too serious, you know. But it's not. I don't like the political BS, the political correctness, such as all BS. But this is also why in every television show, every commercial, and almost every movie now, it's got to be. You have to have like a black and white mixed race couples, and I have no problem with mixed race couples, but when you do it to where this is like the norm now of everything, well, that goes back to them saying we're getting rid of all white people, and we're making it the norm that we're just getting rid of all white people. Now it's racist. And then not only that, but you've got schools and education today. Every week I'm seeing stories. There was a lawsuit I saw, I think today or this week, about teachers teaching that, you know, white people are bad in class and in books and schools. And that's wrong and racist too. I mean, it's just wrong and racist. I mean, how can you scream racism and then you're going to be racist to other people? I mean, I thought the idea is to get rid of racism and we all come together. Instead, no, it's just reversed racism. You know, how is that? But, you know, I'm going off on this big tangent, but it all coalesces, it all fits together, and is all signs of the times. So in order for, say that in Israel, they remove the Palestinians, they retake control of the Temple Mount and the Great Mosque. Now, the Jewish people believe that that area is unclean because it's controlled by Muslims. So even if they remove the Muslims, the Palestinians is still unclean for the Jewish people and priests to be there. So how do they cleanse the Temple Mount? Well, that brings us to the red heifer. Okay. So from Texas to Israel, red heifers needed for the temple to arrive. Okay. So the crazy this is, they found these perfect red heifers that fit all their requirements in Tejas, Texas. All right. And that's what this article is about. Here's a Jewish rabbi inspecting a Texas heifer that's perfectly red to make sure that it fits all their criteria for their Temple Mount ceremony. And that's what all this is about. They need to sacrifice these heifers in a specific ritual, and that they believe that that will cleanse it, the Temple Mount, so that the priest can then return to serve there out of the clan of Levite, can return to serve there, and then they can start their preparations for the rebuilding of the third temple, which will be led by the Antichrist. He will sit as the high priest of that third temple. All right. And that goes back to the prophecy of Jesus, where you denied me as the Messiah, but you will accept another Messiah.
Time to reveal the red heifer schedule.
We did that one.
You will not believe this update on the red heifer Bible prophecy.
I believe it.
You will not believe this update on the red heifer Bible prophecy. They just finished building the $1 billion altar on the Mount of Olives. If you've been paying attention to what's been going on in this certain country with all the wars, the major reason why the other team attacked this team is because of this Bible prophecy. Because you see, the Muslim Dome of the Rock is on the Temple Mount right now. And so by saying we are going to do this red heifer sacrifice on April 10th, it's an all-out declaration to that country saying we are going to take you guys out and rebuild the third temple. And the Muslims are like, absolutely not, because the dome is completely sacred to the Muslim faith. And so if it's destroyed, not only every other Muslim nation is going to have a problem, but every Muslim around the world is going to have a problem. They literally just said that April 10th is the day they're going to sacrifice the red heifer. If you want to make sure you're living ready for the return of Jesus, then subscribe right now and watch the video I pinned right here.
So there's a red heifer. My guest that I was going to have on tonight just texted me and said that he had some health issues that unexpectedly came up, and told him that's what I figured would happen, because I know he's a very reliable person. And so if I didn't hear from him, I really got worried that it would have been some health issues. I know he's been struggling with some issues for a while, so I really got kind of worried about him. And I waited a long time. I was planning to do this show earlier because I have to get up for church tomorrow. It's Easter and I'm serving at my church, so I got to go to bed. But anyway, that brings us to the end of the show anyway. I won't keep y'all forever. I tried to wing it on my own. Like I said, I had a guest prepared, so I hope I did a good job with it for you guys and didn't go off in too much of tangents. But everything all coalesces. It all is a part of a piece of the puzzle. It all comes together. It all, if you step back, it shows the bigger picture of what's going on. And the bigger picture of what's going on is we're on the verge of nuclear war. We're on the verge of God saying that, giving a warning sign, and probably one of the last warning signs that he's given to the U.S., that it's fixing to be destroyed by his will. All right. We've turned against him as a nation. It's sad, but it's true. Okay. So that's two things right there. We're on the verge of nuclear war, which I already stated. So I got to take a finger back. We talked about everything with the eclipse and how that could be a sign of the times. I tied it into the new Madrid fault line. Also showed how people are pointing out that it's crossing the 8 Ninevehs. All right. Which again is a warning and a sign. Here's another thing people brought up. It was 7 years from the first line of the X to this new line of the X. 7 years. And some people have equated that to that's the 7 years tribulation, that could be significant to that. I don't know if that's the case, but it's possible. It's possible. So, and then I connected to how Sarin is also starting up. Now, they haven't been running for years. So why do they pick this moment? And I believe it's about portals. My intuition tells me it's all about portals. And Saren's a very sketchy place. Like we said, it's on an ancient temple dedicated to Apollyon. Um, and it's dedicated to Shiva, which is the god of destruction that dances through dimensional gates. So it tells you what they're doing because Shiva dances through dimensional gates to come here to destroy this planet. Hello. So what's Saren about? Opening dimensions to opening portals to other dimensions to bring entities that will destroy this planet to this side, like unlocking the gates of hell. And when it comes to the horsemen of the apocalypse, the white horseman, which everyone says the pale rider, is the Antichrist. All right. The Antichrist, it says he will kill 1/3 of humanity. By the way, 1/3 of the world identifies right now as Christian. Think that's a coincidence? Antichrist comes to kill 1/3 of humanity. 1/3 of the world's Christian. Comes to kill 1/3 of humanity. 1/3 of the world's Christian. You get the idea. Now, but it also says that death follows with him. So the Antichrist comes to kill 1/3, but it says hell follows with him. Well, how does hell follow with him? Here's how. Not only does the Antichrist kill 1/3 of humanity, Christians, but hell follows with him because the keys of the bottomless pit were given only to one. And I claim that is the Antichrist. He has the ability, he's the key for opening the portal to hell, to release the creatures there into our world, which Jesus said would happen. As it was in the days of Noah, so it shall be again at the end. It begs the question, what was it like in the days of Noah? Well, that's where we go back to Enoch. And Enoch tells you what it was like in the days of Noah and why we actually had the flood. Was to destroy the fallen angels. That God imprisoned the fallen angels. But then he started a war called the Clash of the Titans, which is really funny because we got a movie that just came out in the theater that's King Kong versus Godzilla. All right. And what do they call those in that movie? The Titans. The Return of the Titans. You think that's a coincidence that they're doing movies about the return of the Titans? Giants going to war with each other? No, it's not a coincidence. Remember the Giant of Kandahar? Remember the show I did with L.A. Marzulli? The man who made that broke the story wide to the world about the Giant of Kandahar? So no. So the Antichrist opens the key to the abyss, and hell follows with him. So by them having the Antichrist, and I claim that Saren is the new Tower of Babel, in which the Tower of Babel was not a tower to reach the sky. That was a metaphor. It was an interdimensional portal to open the gateway to hell to let those creatures that are imprisoned loose back into our world. But God said he had to intervene because they had the ability to do what they were trying to do. But that was not the time, the day, the year, the hour. But when is? Right now. And I can even read you the Bible verse that says it's the time, the day, the year, and the hour right now. Or why it claims right now. Well, you know, I can make a case for it as right now, even when the Bible says it. But that's going to be for another show because I want to go into more detail to explain those things in those areas and how it all ties together in a later episode. So I'll tease it right now, but I'm not going to go into too much detail about it. Anyway, needless to say, these are the times that we're living in. So I believe that the false prophet will sit in the seat, in a false seat, meaning stolen, in Rome, while the Antichrist himself, who they're contemporaries, just as John the Baptist was to Jesus, all right? And remember, one's a forerunner. So, and I believe the Antichrist will sit at the Temple Mount in Jerusalem, okay? That's what I believe my theory is going to happen. But I'll tell you something else that God told me. And that's about the prophecies of the return of Elijah. Elijah, the great prophet. And that will also be for another show. So, everybody, I got to go to bed and get up for church. God bless all of y'all. I hope you're doing good. I hope I've given you some food for thought, or it might, God might use it to illuminate you in some different ways. But draw close to God and each other while there's time to do so, because our time is short. So keep the lights on. I am the fifth horseman of the apocalypse. Have a good night. Till next time.